Lemonada.
Welcome to Worth It from the Minnesota Star Tribune. I'm Nicole Norfleet.
And I'm Aaron Brown.
Each week on the show, we share the happenings around Minnesota that we think are worth your time, your attention, and your money. We are off enjoying summer this week, but we have a great show for you with fun conversations that you may or may not have heard already. Our music critic shares his picks for the best concert venues in the state. We're talking with our food expert about gourmet cotton candy drinks and a totally can't-miss venue. And finally, we've got the best paddling places in the metro. Listen up, and then get out there. Summer is concert season, and there are tons of acts touring through the state. I'm hanging out to see Incubus this weekend at Treasure Island. I'm very excited. Going to be outdoors, maybe on a blanket with, of course, a beer in my hand.
Of course.
What are you going to be doing, Aaron?
Well, we always hang out by the lake on 4th of July weekend, but the Trampled by Turtles show is going to be in Duluth at Bayfront, so that's always a big midsummer rite. Once you pass that, you're in the back half of summer. But that's the big event.
Well, we know that going to a concert is about more than just the music. So John Bream, who has worked as a Star Tribune music critic since 1975, is here to give us the lowdown on the 53, count them, 53 of the busiest and most well-known music venues in the Twin Cities. John, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Nicole.
So, John, you've been a music critic for what, 50 years? Is that what it is? Aaron, 50 years this year.
Yeah, well, I think that's half a century.
That's amazing.
When he started, there was no music.
What are they playing on at that point?
Yeah. And I still have no hearing aids.
Oh, that's pretty impressive.
So this is the first time you decided to do a venue review? Like, why now? What was the reason to tackle this, I guess, controversial story?
Well, it's controversial to you. I mean, everyone has an opinion, and there's no right or wrong opinion. Chris Riemenschneider and I get this question all the time. What's your favorite place to go to a concert? I came up with this idea of a guide to the concert venues because that's useful. It's useful to newcomers to town. It's useful to people that don't get out much, even if you've lived here for a long time. So we just thought it would be a fun thing to do. It might be a little controversial in places, but, we get paid for giving our opinions, and we know we're going to get blowback. That comes with the territory. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We didn't know we'd get a blowback from the podcast host.
Friendly fire right in the building.
So you started with 100 venues. How did you whittle it down?
The original list was, I think, 97, and then we probably, if we would have paid attention to a few other suggestions we had, it probably would have been over 100. How did we whittle it down is a good question. We decided to do the busiest venues and the most prominent venues. So in other words, the worst venue didn't even make the list. That's the Roy Wilkins. Why? Because it's only had like one show in the last 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
So we didn't think it was fair to include it. So there's other venues that may have been prominent at times, like the Myth.
Oh, I love
that we didn't include because they just don't have that many shows right now.
What went into your evaluations?
Well, we visited the places or revisited them, depending on how long it had been since we've been there. I think I've been to all but 2 of the places, and I think the same is true for Chris. So we divided up the list, and you evaluate it on many different things. Sight lines, acoustics, comfort, restrooms.
Drinks? Do you evaluate it on drinks?
Not a lot on drinks. If there's a lot of good things to say about the drinks, we say it. Or if they're expensive, we mention it. If there's free popcorn, we mention it.
Popcorn,
parking, access, those sorts of things. Parking's a real issue at some of these places.
It's interesting what makes a good acoustic experience, because a lot of the newer venues, they think they're acoustically sound, but they're not. What defines like a good acoustic setting?
You can't have a lot of hard surfaces. You got to have soft surfaces that absorb things. You can't have square corners because that doesn't lead to good sound. No, you should have rounded walls.
So it's like the sound waves bouncing off the walls can just mess it up.
Yes.
Okay.
And hint, U.S. Bank Stadium. Stadium.
If the stadium's like a pong field and the pong ball is bouncing off the corners, that's bad.
Well, we'll let people read the full story themselves to see if they agree, but can you give us a few of your top picks?
Well, we have a top 5 and we have a bottom 5, but in the top 5, First Avenue,
of course,
Ordway's Music Theater. Now, there's 2 rooms at the Ordway. There's the music hall, the bigger one,
right.
But it's the music theater that made our top list. Berlin, which is kind of a jazz club that's new down in the North Loop. XL Energy Center.
XL. I saw Janet there. I had on, that was when I was pregnant, and I had on a T-shirt that said "Baby's First Janet Show." It was amazing. I loved it. Sorry.
I was there. I saw you. Yes, it was a very cute outfit. Very, very, very cute outfit. And then the last one in our top 5, and these are not in order necessarily, was the Bayfront Festival grounds up in Duluth.
Yeah, and that's more my hood. I saw Bob Dylan and Paul Simon there several years ago, and it was just an iconic concert. Just really enjoyed it.
I really want to get out there, but the Incubus show at Treasure Island is the same freaking date as the Trampled by Turtles show this year, July 5th. So
the outdoor site at Treasure Island is good. You'll just have trouble getting out after the show unless you stay at the hotel for a while.
I'm staying there. They got the whole lazy river and everything. Why would I leave?
Hope you don't lose anything in the casino.
I don't gamble. That's the trick. If you don't gamble, then you can make it out of there alive.
The only way the house doesn't win.
Well, she just paid for the hotel and the tickets and the drinks and yeah.
And the lazy river ticket, yeah.
At least the parking was free.
The wristband is free for the lazy river, guys. Okay, the one place you would take an out-of-town friend out of that list. I mean, it may not be, best, worst, I don't know, most unique. What's the place that you would take somebody?
I would say the Dakota probably. Mm-hmm. I would recommend Berlin as well, but that's harder to get tickets for because there's only 85 seats. But the Dakota has, lots of great shows. But definitely, and they have a good menu, so it impresses visitors, and it's a nicely appointed club. It's comfortable.
Well, John, you've interviewed so many different musicians over the years. Could you give us, maybe one of your favorite stories?
Well, the one I like to tell is about Dylan. It's a long story, but I'll give you the kind of short version. I went out to Berkeley, California to see him. I was trying to arrange an interview. I got backstage, and I ran into a road manager who I'd known who'd worked with Morris Day, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" He says, "Well, I'm Bob Dylan's tour accountant." He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to get an interview with Dylan." I said, "Can you take me to his dressing room?" I said, "He knows me." And he goes, "Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll walk you by and then you're on your own."
Okay.
So I walk up, he walks me by the dressing room, points to the dressing room. I'm standing in the doorway and a bodyguard comes over and says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "I'm John Bream from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune." And I said it loud enough, and Bob looks up, "Hey, John, come on in."
Oh, wow.
So he said, what are you doing? What are you, blah, blah, blah. And I pulled out my tape recorder. No, no interviews.
Okay.
We're just hanging out. And this is after the show, and he's playing again the next night. And so he says, "Well, why don't you come over to the show tomorrow night with me?" I said, "Okay." And I knew which hotel he was staying at, so of course I'm staying at the hotel.
So cool.
And then I see him in the bar after the gig and say hi and all that. So the next day, I come down to the lobby of the hotel, and he's in an unmarked van. And he says, "You got your tape recorder? I want you to listen to my new album."
What?
I go, "No, it's up in the room." So he says, "Well, go up and get it." So I'm thinking yesterday his manager said, he doesn't have time to talk to you. They were treating me like I had leprosy. Now all of a sudden, Bob Dylan's waiting for me.
Did you run up, or did they have somebody run up for you?
No, I went up in the elevator, and it was this old hotel. It was a resort hotel that was over 100 years old. And so I went up and got it, and I listened to the album on headphones all the way riding into the gig. Huh. And, it was knocked out loaded, which is probably the worst Bob Dylan album ever.
It was like, what?
But I still had to say something positive to him.
Yeah, he gave you a whole...
Yeah, so, there were a couple songs I liked. There was one he wrote with Sam Shepard, and I liked that. And there was a Chris Christopherson song. And so I'm with him, in his dressing room. He doesn't even excuse himself to change from his jeans into his leather pants. He's sitting there talking to me. And so I'm walking with him as he's getting ready to go on stage. And I know where the line of demarcation is.
Okay.
He doesn't tell me where to go or anything. I'm just walking with him. So I stop. He goes on stage, and he's performing with Tom Petty. Tom Petty's band is his backup band. I'm standing over by the mixing console. And I realize the guy standing next to me is Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead. And he's offering this running commentary about the Dylan show. So Garcia turns to me and says, "Hey, you look familiar." And I said, "Well, we've talked on the phone a couple times, but we've never met in person." So I introduced myself, and I said, "Do you mind if I quote you on some of these things you've been saying?" He said, "No, go ahead."
This commentary, live
commentary.
So
I got, hey, great. I got a sidebar here on Jerry Garcia quoted me.
Wow.
So I got my Bob Dylan story without an interview. I hung out with him for a day and a half, but never got the interview.
Comments,
yeah.
Got, oh my gosh, I got some new songs. Wow. I feel like I don't even want to tell my stories now. Okay, I was like, I think everyone has a First Avenue story, right? Like everyone has a First Avenue story. And I had done like a couple tours there before, and I had just, been for little parties and stuff like that. But I was there when Questlove and Maya Rudolph were there.
Their Prince's show? For
Prince's show, right? And this is like we had went, and I think he was a DJ. He was in the back, and he had walked by me, and I was just like, "Yo, Quest." And he turned and looked at me. I was like, "Yo, Quest, can I get a picture with you right quick?" He turned and looked at me. He was like, "It's never right quick, girl. It's never right quick." And he But dude, I could see Maya, because Maya's a big Prince fan, right? And so she's like partying in the back. And it was just like, I think First Avenue is definitely the venue that I always take people to, because even if you don't like love whatever it's being played, it's just like the atmosphere is just dynamite. It's just like you can't help but just be happy when you're in First Avenue. The bathrooms suck though. It's like I'm like hanging out, not trying to touch anything as I'm going in and out. But First Avenue is definitely that place. And you haven't
even been in the men's room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God, if the women's room is like that, I don't even want to know what the men's room is like. John Bream, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole and Aaron.
If you like Worth It, you should know it's just a tiny taste of all that the Minnesota Star Tribune has to offer. We've got an all-access pass to everything Minnesota, from outdoor adventures to the hottest food spots you've never heard of. From puzzles and games to the best concerts and happenings around the state. It's all here all the time. So subscribe to the Minnesota Star Tribune. It's a great deal. Go to startribune.com/worthit to subscribe. That's worth it to subscribe, all one word. This is an ad by BetterHelp. Did you know that workplace stress is now one of the top causes of declining mental health? In fact, 60% of the global workforce is experiencing higher than normal levels of stress. You can't just wave goodbye to work, but taking small steps for your wellness can yield big results. Hit play on your favorite podcast or song, sit in the sun, or take a walk daily. Even 5 minutes away from your screen can make all the difference. And while holidays are nice, they aren't a long-term solution. Don't forget that therapy can be ongoing and can help you build resilience to handle the unexpected challenges that the workday or any day can bring. Finding work-life balance can be hard. Getting the help you deserve? That should be easy. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com for 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com.
So whenever I'm facing a crisis or a possible doomsday scenario, I turn to eating. So I'm very excited about this segment. Each week, our Star Tribune foodies make a list of the top 5 things they ate. And we've asked Joy Summers to come in and talk about her favorite picks from around the metro. Hey, Joy.
Hi.
So you are a Star Tribune food and drink reporter. So first off, do you just like eat all the time, or like how does this job work?
I eat, and then I write about it, and then I write about eating, and then I ask everybody where they've been eating, then I go out and eat some more.
Oh, that sounds so awesome.
It's fun.
So you wrote about 5 different dishes in the metro, and like let's just cut to the chase. If I want something that's going to put a smile on my face, I'm not sure what's going on with the economy, I want something maybe not too expensive but sweet, what's the thing that you would pick?
I have the absolute perfect thing for you is the Spinning Wild stand at Maplewood Mall. It is cotton candy, gourmet cotton candy, and they're doing it in a little bar format. They have little stools. You can go in and order things like lemonade with a cotton candy topper on top. It's a little swirl. They come with sprinkles, and it is impossible to be in a bad mood when you're drinking one.
Now, what is gourmet cotton candy? Like, can you explain that?
That's a fair question. So cotton candy doesn't have to be pink. Like, there's just one flavor for some reason, but really it's just spun sugar. So you can put any kind of flavorings in there, and Spinning Wild has a multitude of flavors. It can be anything from a spicy habanero margarita flavored to something simple like huckleberry or watermelon with lime. There's salty things, there's sweet things. It's so fun. There's butterbeer if you're a Harry Potter fan.
I am a Harry Potter fan. You got me at that.
It's so much fun. So you pick your flavor, they spin it around like regular cotton candy, and then they give it to you at the bar. You can get it on top of drinks. So I got mine over some huckleberry lemonade and then optional sprinkles, but who says that they're optional? You've got to get sprinkles.
Got to get sprinkles. We're in the sprinkle economy right now.
It's so cute. Everything they do is fun, and it speaks to the kid inside anyone, no matter what your age is.
Maplewood Mall has to be maybe my favorite mall revitalization project here in the Twin Cities. So a lot of the stores moved out. Sears obviously wasn't there anymore. And I just didn't have a lot of hope for this place. But they really cashed in on bringing all these local businesses, a lot of people of color, a lot of very eclectic things you would not normally see in a mall. I think there was the petting zoo. I think they're bringing in the Monktown Marketplace, the second version of that.
Yes. Well, the day we were there, they were doing wrestling, which was wholly unexpected because you have gourmet cotton candy next to a double-decker historic merry-go-round, right next to a giant pen, and
it was just
surrounded by people cheering and flinging each other over, and the smash of people on the mats, and it was nuts. Oh, and then a little teeny tiny train will go
with all the kids
by all the way around. It was like living in a fever dream in the best possible sense. How is this real?
And that's what malls are supposed to be, these big community centers. And I think I took my son, and it was a Hmong New Year event. I had him in his own Hmong New Year outfit, and it was just a lot of fun. He was able to crawl around, and there was performances. It was a ton of fun. Aaron, what do you think? Is it worth the drive to try some cotton candy? When was the last time you had cotton candy?
Well, the Itasca County Fair, of course. I think it was in the context of a child not finishing their cotton candy. But I will say this to what Joy was saying is every time I have cotton candy, I don't just have cotton candy. I remember the first time as a kid watching them make it and thinking it was the coolest thing ever. So I really understand what the appeal there of the color and the spinning and the nostalgia.
I think the funny thing is when you say that, I think my first cotton candy was at the Itasca County Fair.
Yeah. I feel left out. I wish my first cotton candy was at the Itasca Family Fair.
Come up in August. Yeah.
Yeah.
Smaller than the state fair. It's a very nice little fair.
Well, Joy, thank you so much for bringing so much joy to this. Can't wait to go back there and try it with the Fam Bam. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So, Nicole, I lived near a very lovely little lake, and it is just been a wonder because when my son was little, he had a lot of trouble. He was mad all the time, and he was 5, and he was just really a loud, angry little kid. And he started going outside every day, and he wanted to go out on the water. And so what happened back then is we got him a kayak, and he has paddled every non-frozen day on the lake ever since. He's in college now.
That's wonderful.
And it literally just helped him regulate, and he's now probably one of our most zen children, one of the most zen teenagers you ever meet.
And
resilient, doing great. And I can't help but think that the peace and quiet and comfort of paddling a beautiful, pristine little lake with the fish jumping and the birdies cheeping and chirping is a big part of it. Well, our reporters put together the ultimate guide to paddling in the Twin Cities Metro. Greta Call covers the built environment. Between Greta, our colleague Jake Steinberg, and others, they paddled 11 routes for this guide. Welcome, Greta. And just one question. Did your arms hurt after all that paddling?
Cross-country skiing is my winter sport, so I like to think it's like a rest after
actually, that's
She got those guns.
So what was the inspiration for doing this guide?
Yeah, this actually started, I've had this idea for years because my husband and I got a canoe as our wedding gift. And
That's a very Minnesota wedding.
Before,
That's awesome.
before we put the canoe fund on our wedding registry, I had been walking around our neighborhood a lot during the pandemic, and I saw a lot of canoes in people's backyards that looked very dirty and very unused. And I was like, we can get a canoe, but the rule is that we have to use it. And we can't just use it once a year or every other year to go up to the Boundary Waters. So we really started, and we had a little bit more time at home during the pandemic. So we really started looking for paddles that were in our backyard that we could do. We at first called them happy hour paddles that we could just like go do after work. And so that's how it got started. I was just looking for information about where to put in boats and stuff. And I found it really wasn't all in one place, and it was kind of hard to find and put it all together. So it sort of started as me trying to solve a problem in my own life, but I realized, so many people have those sad boats, and I want them all to get out on the water more. So that's where it started. And I roped in,
to be wet.
I roped in a lot of colleagues who luckily were down for the cause. So.
Well, that sounds super fun. And I know you guys separated the routes by easy versus intermediate. What's the difference?
Yeah, so if you look at our guide, you're going to find the easy routes tend to be ones that don't have a current. So a lot of lakes. There's a couple chains of lakes in the Twin Cities Metro, that kind of thing. There are also routes that tend to have rentals. Some of the intermediate ones do as well, but the easy ones tend to have more rentals. And they're just more approachable both from a logistics perspective and from I don't know how to deal with currents and it's my first time out paddling type of perspective, but very doable for somebody if you've never even been in a boat before.
And so this guide includes like 11 great places, and it would be a lot for us to get into each one. But if you want to see the full guide, you can go to Minnesota Star Tribune's website for the story. But Greta, let me ask you, as a paddler, what's your preference, canoe, kayak, or paddleboard?
I have to say that I love kayaking. And the reason I love kayaking is because you are right down on the water. And I think I just had some like formative experiences when I was young where you can really like kind of sneak up on wildlife and be really close to the wildlife. And I just think that's so cool. And that's not something you can always do like in a canoe because you're usually with another person. You have to have another person to go canoeing with you unless you have a solo canoe. So it's just really nice to be able to like grab a kayak and go out there by yourself. It feels like it doesn't take as much planning and you're really just close to the water.
Did your favorite place make the list, Greta?
Yeah, so I will preface this by saying I'm a river girl. I grew up in the St. Croix Valley, going on the St. Croix River a lot.
I love St. Croix River.
And so I just love running water. I don't dislike lakes, but I find paddling them a little boring sometimes. And so my favorite is the St. Paul route that goes from Hidden Falls to Harriet Island. And the reason I love that route is because when you start that route, you feel like you're not even in the city. It's just a beautiful, pretty natural, serene area. You'll see people fishing and you'll see people at the Minnehaha Dog Park with their dogs and stuff at the beginning of the route. But it's really serene and peaceful. There's a little detour you can take around Pike Island, which is beautiful as well. But then you start kind of getting glimpses of the industrial and working river as you get closer to downtown St. Paul. So you'll see like this cool swinging bridge and just really things that like even as somebody who grew up in the Twin Cities, I don't think I'd never seen those parts of the city from that angle. And
from the perspective.
It just makes you really appreciate different parts of the city, I think. So I got a new appreciation for that. I also have seen beavers on that route, which is very cool. But it spits you out like right by the St. Paul skyline, which is so cool at the end of your route. You get to see the skyline. You get to see all the big bridges in St. Paul. And I just think that's the coolest route.
Now, do you get to be careful of like traffic and like barges? I feel like I would be a little worried for a first timer to go out there.
Yeah, so it's a lot like driving on a highway where you want to give people wide berth and make sure that you're
zipper
not
merge.
in their
Or you
way.
zipper merge onto there.
Well, I've never had to zipper merge, but I'll let you know if I do. But you want to give, if you see like a barge or something, you want to stay away from it. You're always on the right, given what way you're going, like on a highway. So yeah, you just got to follow those rules and make sure you're paying attention. Stay close to shore if you're, in a small craft is a good rule of thumb.
Greta, was there any like hidden gems, like something that you were surprised to see make the list?
Yeah, totally. And I feel bad saying this as a St. Paul girl, but the Phelan chain of lakes is so cool.
It's so beautiful, right?
It's just like really lovely. And I love running around Lake Phelan, but I'd really never thought about paddling on it, which is sad.
Me neither. I normally will do a walk around there. We'll be there for an event. And I never thought, oh yeah, I should get in a boat out there.
I also think it's just kind of an underappreciated gem overall. Like the Minneapolis chain of lakes, which I also love, can be so busy.
Crowded.
And Phelan is just kind of this peaceful oasis. It's sort of similar in some ways, but it's chiller, I would say. And the route that we have on that side of town really takes you through this like cool channel where you wouldn't know you were in St. Paul going through this like thin little channel. There's a tiny little portage, but it's like
1 or 2 canoes.
Yeah, it's
long.
it's a great way to practice portaging because like you just can pick up your canoe and walk around it.
For people, like I didn't know what portaging was until I came to Minnesota. What is portaging?
Yeah, so portaging is when you can't pass through something on the water, so you have to take your canoe out of the water and go around an obstacle basically on foot and carry your canoe.
Any other advice for beginners, say if they don't have a boat, what they should make sure they bring and what kind of things if they should have a checklist?
Yeah, I think definitely check out the paddle share program and other rental programs. We have a pretty good list of them in the guide. So you don't need to have a boat. Some of those paddle rental programs are super easy where you don't have to if you have your own boat, sometimes you're lugging it kind of far. But in those situations, a lot of times the boats are right there. So you can just use them so you don't have to worry about that. Bring sunscreen. I have gotten so burnt out there. Even if you don't think it's that sunny, the water kind of seems to reflect the sun and it will get you. So that's my advice for newbies.
And you have to have a life jacket, right?
Yes. You have to at least have one with you, but if you're new to it or you're not a good swimmer, it's definitely a good idea to wear it. There's also all kinds of programs that will help you learn to paddle if that's not something that you're comfortable with. The DNR has an I Can Paddle program that people can sign up for. And I know there are also a bunch of guided paddles around town that you could Google and find if you wanted to just kind of, try it out before you make a commitment to go out by yourself.
And I would totally like to go out on these happy hour paddles with you.
Let's go. Let's get a group out. I love it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much again.
Thanks for having me.
Worth It is a co-production of the Minnesota Star Tribune and Lemonada Media. It's hosted by me, Nicole Norfleet, and Aaron Brown. The production team includes Melissa Townsend, Chrissy Pease, and Tiffany Bowie, with help from Zoe Jackson and Casey Darnell. This series is mixed by Johnny Vince Evans with technical help from Matt Gilmer. Our theme was composed by Dan Malad. Lemonada's Senior Vice President of Weekly Content and Production is Steve Nelson, and the Star Tribune's Director of Audio and Video Initiatives is Jenny Pinkley. Executive producers are Stephanie Whittles-Wax and Jessica Cordova-Kramer. Help others find our show by leaving us a rating and writing a review. Follow Worth It wherever you get your podcasts or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership. Thanks so much for listening. Catch you next week. Bye.